Hey guys, still here and welcome to this armory review of the 11th ACR, the Armored Cavalry Regiment. This new battle group just came out in WARNO, so let's have a look. What does this thing do well? What do they not do so well? Now, noteworthy about this regiment, it is very much focused around Recon. You got a lot of Recon slots, so this is going to give you a ton of options to play the game, I'd say almost as the old school motorized deck from Wargame Red Dragon. It doesn't exactly work the same way because your infantry tab is extremely limited. So let's take it tab by tab. Logistics, you got very few points. Now, you could make the case you don't need a ton of logistics. You just need to make sure that the units in the Recon tab and the Tank tab keep functioning. Helicopters would be nice because the helicopters are also very good in this particular armory, this particular battle group. So, what we have available is 3 different logi options. You got the S404 Unimog, the UH-60A, and the CH-47C. So, big and clunky, but carries a ton of supplies. Carries far fewer supplies, but a heck of a lot faster. Sorry, no, this one's faster. This one is cheaper, 45 versus 80, and also more numerous, or ground-based. And on especially big maps, not very handy. CVs, a couple of different options. We got the Iltis, we got the APC, or CPC command post, you got the Humvee CP, and the UH-60A. It's going to really depend on how you want to play these guys. It's going to give you different options. If you want to very quickly pop in, cap something, and get out, and you don't expect to stay there, so you're not counter-capping a zone, then the UH-60A might be the go-to for you. They are at 85 points, just about as expensive as everything else. I could make the case that this thing is more survivable than anything else, but it has to rely on armor. A Humvee relies on speed, and same for the Iltis. As for a field supply point, in this particular battle group I would recommend it, because this is going to give you a ton of supplies. And considering that this helicopter group, or that this battle group relies quite a bit on these Cobras, it could be very handy to have a field supply point instead of one of the others. So what my logi tab in this particular deck would look like, and this is for, let's say, relatively smaller games, 2v2s, 4v4s, not 10v10. I would go with an Iltis, so I can potentially supply a town, and I would probably bring a UH-60 or the CH-47. It's really going to depend kind of on what my team brings. If I don't know what my team brings, I will go for the, let's say, the option that gives me the most options. The best choice is the one that gives you more choices, and that would be the UH-60A supply. Moving on to infantry. This particular battle group does not have a whole lot of slots. You got 2 1 points, 1 2 point, and 2 3 points, so pick your infantry carefully. We have a Panzer Grenadier Leader, also Panzer Grenadier Standard. These guys get transported in a Marder 1A3. So you do get some firepower with these guys, but it is not the one which has the Milan. So yeah, it can provide fire support, it can provide some armor, so your command infantry might retreat in it if push comes to shove, but don't expect it to do a ton of damage against tanks unless it's like right up in their face. Panzer Grenadier with the Marder, you got the Marder 1A3 and the Marder Milan, making it more expensive, but for 10 points, I would say the Milan is well worth it. You get 5 off them, 17 pen, and depending on the veterancy, if you go for maximum veterancy, you can get these up to a relatively respectable 49% accuracy. Low veterancy is 45, so does it matter a whole lot? I would say no. In this case, the 4% versus losing 9 to just 3, I would say it's not worth it. Heimatschützen, basically filling up as much as you possibly can. The problem is, these guys are a bit fragile, they're reservists, so they're more likely to take suppression damage and thus start faltering. Sporting, 12.7mm machine gun. It's the only supporter that they get. Some decks have more options, these guys just have this one with a Humvee. Engineers Leader, Engineers Flash. These have the Satchel Charge. 10-man squad, these are a 5-man squad, but you get the incendiary rocket launcher. So a bit more standoffish than the engineers. I would pick these if I'm going to go into a town. And arguably, with this particular battle group, I probably would not want to be there. Because a town is something that is going to require grinding, and that is something that this deck battle group just doesn't do very well. You don't have the numbers. You can, if you want to, just spam engineers. You still get 36 this way. Is it the best use of the battle group? I would argue not really. The engineers with the dragons, I'm very tentative to pick these. The reason for this is that they only have 14 AP. Their range is 1575. Their accuracy is fairly bad. So in this situation, especially considering that the tank tab has the mighty M1A1 Abrams with 19 AP and 65% accuracy, I don't really see a reason to bring the dragon in. Arrow rifles, if you want to bring a couple of guys onto a certain position very quickly. They got the U-860 Blackhawk. Now, if you don't sell this thing off automatically, or, well, decidedly, you can bring 2 M240Ds, which does give you a decent amount of fire support, but it's a fairly fragile helicopter nonetheless. Interestingly, 10% ECM, so it's gonna at least try and shrug off a missile. You got the mech rifles with Laws. Not a great anti-tank weapon. Again, this battle group very much relies on having its own tanks to do tank-on-tank warfare. And you also have the dismounted troopers for that. These guys, however, only carry 4 anti-tank weapons. That's 4 AT4s. These guys carry 4 M72s. So, short-range anti-tank capability, yes. Durability, very, very low. These guys at least are 11. So, these guys are far more capable at, let's say, staying in the fight and making sure that your infantry doesn't outright die. These guys, far less so. They are an interesting, I'd say, ambusher. And they do have a security, but then again, it's a light group, if you will. They're, well, as it says, they're going to increase their optics and ID levels to good when not moving. But they are just an infantry squad. So, yeah, they're okay. I have used them already to try and go through a forest. I think they managed to kill a BMP, but beyond that, I haven't really tested them that well. Finally, we got the Milan 2, anti-tank weapon, 50% accuracy on low vet. If you push veterancy up, it's going to go 55%, which is okay, it's not spectacular. Just basically stand off, and I would definitely prefer the Milan over the Dragon. Considering the Milan is more expensive, you're going to have to babysit them a little more. This is 65 plus 20, this is 40 plus 20, so yeah, the Dragons are cheaper. The Dragons are more numerous relative to the Milan, so in that case, yeah. They will take more hits before they go down, but if there's a few tanks shooting at you, these guys probably won't be able to shoot back. These guys will, but they will only take one shot to get taken out. How would I build up this particular part of the deck? Again, team games, 4v4. I would bring a couple Milans. I'm not going to bring a whole lot. I want to make sure that they get decent accuracy, and of course bringing a leader is going to make that accuracy even better. I want to have something that can start pushing, and I don't want arrow rifles, because while they're pretty good, they do show up in a fairly obvious ride in the form of the Blackhawk, so I don't really want those. I do kind of like the dismount troopers, and otherwise just bring the mech rifles. They do get the option to bring a Dragon transport. The other option is just having an M113, so basically a box with a gun. This one at least is a box with a gun and an HEGM, which is nice because for 5 points more you do get the Dragon, relative to bringing the Dragon specifically on an engineer's vehicle, or an engineering team. The thing is, they are somewhat fragile. These things basically only take one hit from a tank and they're done. In this situation, I'd say I want to get a fairly decent amount of these, but I can only get them once. So I'm going to low vet them and basically use them, don't tell them, as fodder. I want to have these guys get shot at so I know what to point my tank's guns at. I definitely want to bring the Panzers, the Panzer Grenadiers with the Martyrs. The Martyr with the Milan, very potent weapon. It is going to make them fairly expensive. And I do want the Milans to get some accuracy bonus, so this is what I would pick. And then I might bring a leader, but I haven't quite decided yet. Off, let's say firepower inside of a town, maybe these guys, but I haven't decided yet. Party. Meh. You don't get a ton of options. You do get very expensive. Again, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. So yeah, you're going to be paying a hefty price for that. You got the M1A1 A3, you also got the M109 A2. Are there any differences? Yes, these guys can hit a bit farther at 24 kilometers. These guys, well, I mean, it's basically just the range, and they get a different machine guns. These get the M2 HB, these guys get the MG3. Is that going to matter? I would say no. If your RD is using its machine gun, something has gone horribly wrong. As for the mortars, pretty similar difference, i.e. the range. This one fires 107mm mortar, firing 115 shells maximum. These guys fire 80, but they're 120mm. So you get 1.34 HE suppression versus 1.18, 150, 159. If you want to keep these guys a bit safer, I would suspect the Tempella might be the best bet for you. I'm going to bring the Tempella. It's going to double as both an option for me to provide smoke, as well as provide indirect fire on a target that needs suppressing. As for the other one, I don't really care, honestly. I mean, it's basically the same weapon. If you're going to be playing on a 4v4 map, I think the 21 kilometers is enough, and otherwise you're just going to have to move the thing. Tanks. You don't get a lot, but they're pretty good. You get the M1A1s, you get the M1A1 CPs, you get 2 of those per card, if you so desire, or you can upvet them. If you upvet them, they become pretty damn lethal pretty quick. The difference is not that great, but stuff like morale recovery, that really helps. Stress resistance is plus 25, and it's plus 50 here. So a tank like this, likely to get shot at, I probably want these things to maintain their composure and maintain their position in the field. I don't want to have to retreat them, because they're a command tank. They're going to be commanding other tanks. So I would bring 2 of these, and then 2 groups of these, and potentially even 3. The other options that you have are the Jaguar 2, very, very good anti-tank vehicle, 25 AP, 2600 meter range, and 65% accuracy. You can even boost that as high as 71%, but that limits your availability to just 2. This is going to be an instrument that can work very, very well if you lock down an open area with it. They're somewhat situational in the sense that if they are used in a, let's say, more forested area, they're less useful. The CEV, however, not really having that problem. Well, you can make the case that it has the problem in reverse. These guys love forested areas. They have enough armor to take a hit, and if they spot your infantry and shoot your infantry, you're likely not having any infantry anymore. Because these guys do a ton of HE, they do massive amounts of suppression, and I've found a combination of an Abrams plus a CEV and some infantry to be an absolute killer in forests. Also, having these guys fairly close to a town will help. Note that they can fire at 1750 meter range, which means that they outrange some of the ATGMs, such as the 1575 that we just saw on the Dragon. Now, the Red 4 units are going to have some similar stats. I don't exactly know them by heart, but not having these things just have 900 meter range or something like that is very, very valuable. In this situation, I would say I want a couple of them. I haven't really decided if I want 6 or 4. Ideally, they'd be operating in a group with a Command Abrams, potentially another Abrams, and that Command Abrams would buff their veterancy to maximum. So I don't see a reason to bring just the 2 at Elite, unless you're going to be using them outside of a Command Abrams or a leader. Otherwise, I'd say 4. Now, Recon, this is where it gets interesting. This guy is one of the, let's say, more unique vehicles in WARNO at the moment. It's the M1A1 Acav. These guys can be forward deployed. They're not quite a stealth tank, but they do a pretty damn good job trying to be one. They get bad stealth, but if you compare that to an Abrams, they also have bad stealth. The difference is optics. These guys have mediocre optics. The Recon Abrams have good optics. So that's definitely going to help. And this means you might spot the enemy tank before it spots you. This guy is not really one to work alone, I would say, because it is 290 points, it's extremely expensive. It does have multiple machine guns, a heavy and a medium, so enemy infantry trying to sneak up on it is going to have at least some suppression to worry about. I really like these things. You can only get 2 of them, and I would definitely recommend you bring them. Now, the Recon is the best category for this particular deck. Sorry, battle group. Old habits die hard. The other option that we have is the Bradley. The M3A1 Recon Bradley. 12 TOW-2 missiles. And just the availability of these things makes me not really care that much about the Jaguar. Because, yeah, the Jaguar is pretty good. It's going to cost you 105 points. It has 25 AP. But my Bradley does too. It has 25 AP, it's going to cost me 120 points, it spots, and it has stealth. And it has an autocannon, and it has a machine gun. So, yeah, this is going to give me a lot more options. And like I said, the best choice is usually the one that gives you more choices, especially on the battlefield. So, in this situation, I would definitely bring multiple Bradleys, also considering the fact that you can forward deploy these. For some cheaper recon options, you have several. You got the Green Archer for 45 points. These guys have mediocre stealth and exceptional optics. They are really, really good at spotting things. They are extremely fragile. It's basically an APC with a big radar on it. Don't expect these things to survive anything, because they're very, very lightly armored. And if you can keep them pretty far away from a position, or have them scout out an open area, they're going to do a lot of work for you for just 45 points. You also have two helicopters. You got the Scout, OH-58C, and the OH-58D Kiowa Warrior. That's Hellfires. 24 AP, or 24 pen Hellfire. Very, very potent weapon, 2800 meter range. Contrast that to the tank, to the Bradley's TOW-2. This is a potent Helo. Very nice to have. And if you can put these guys in a position where they're just going to be spotting and potentially taking shots at extremely high value targets or difficult to kill tanks, those 130 points are going to be easily worth it. Now, you only get one card, so I would pick these at the lowest veterancy and make sure I have two of them. The OH-58C Scout, not that special. Very good optics as opposed to exceptional. It has a minigun, Gatling weapon. It's pretty good. It's pretty okay. You got BGS if you want to have some cheaper version of a reconnaissance unit. And also one that is more likely to scatter. It is a reservist group. They are security, so they are going to boost their optics and identification levels to good. But they already have very good optics. So I'm not sure exactly how well this is going to give them a bonus. They guard against saboteurs and infiltration attempts. Maybe good for flanking, i.e. defending your flanks. But I wouldn't exactly use them in any offensive capability. We also have Scouts and LRS. Scouts, these guys, basically your 4-man recon team. I wouldn't exactly use them as an active scout, but they do have exceptional stealth, which is very useful. The other guys, the BGS, also have exceptional stealth, but these are not a reservist unit, so they're not as likely to start panicking the moment something lands near them. They also have the option to come in the Humvee M1025, which is the Recon Humvee. So you're basically getting 2 Recon units for the same price. Now, considering that they're not actually a combat unit, I think just having 6 of these, so basically you're getting 12 Recon units for the price of 1 card, is very, very worth it. If you do want to go into combat with somebody, especially enemy infantry, then the LRS is probably going to be your best friend. They got a sniper rifle, they got a light support weapon, they got a submachine gun. I don't know if the Colt Commando is a submachine gun, but maybe that still needs to get adjusted. These guys do not have an anti-tank weapon. Keep that in mind. They do not have an anti-tank weapon. They do have forward deployment, much like the rest of them. They are a commando team. They're special forces, take less suppression in combat, move faster, you know the deal. This is all on top of their veterancy. I would want to have as many of these guys as possible, so I'll take 4. Now, this means I have, let's say, something that moves with my attack element, something that defends an open field, something that spots from very, very far, something I can kind of throw into the enemy and see what pops up, and something that can go on the offensive and potentially snipe high-value units, especially if it's infantry. So I have options. Anti-air. Oh, the Fliegerfaust. No thank you. These guys have awful accuracy. They are dirt cheap. You're just paying 20 points for them and that's it. If you max fat them, you get only 5 instead of 16 and their accuracy goes up to a whopping 44%. No. The Stinger starts at lowest veterancy with 60% accuracy. It's a heck of a lot better. The rest of these stats, similarly, just everything's better across the board. But then again, you're paying twice as much for them. You also got the Pivads. Fairly self-explanatory. Vulcan Gatling gun. Very nice to suppress things. I think, used the Pivads and Stingers together to accidentally sort of kill a plane. I didn't even need the Eyehawk. So if you just sprinkle a couple of Stingers and Pivads around, they will get the job done. They are still fairly fragile though. You got 2 armor on the front and the side, so don't expect miracles. OH-58CS. Stingers. Again, the same Stinger as you know from the basic Stinger infantry unit. I probably want to have these on this deck, because you can build almost roaming groups of helicopters with these, which is going to give you quite a lot of potential to make life on enemy helicopters quite annoying. Especially if you move on to the helicopter tab, which I'll do in a minute. The Eyehawk, just your basic anti-air platform, 3 really big missiles with 9 HE. Accuracy starts at 55, but you can only get 1 at 60% if you go up to highest veterancy. So I wouldn't really recommend that. If you can get these guys close to a leader, you can buff their accuracy a bit. Is it going to be that helpful? I don't know. Especially considering that these guys are most likely going to be fairly stationary. I'm not sure if they fit in with the playstyle of the deck that well. The Stingers, I feel, are more mobile, and so are the Pivads. So let's bring a lot of those and a few less of these. I think that's a lot of Stingers. Moving on to Helos. We got the Cobra, we got the Tow Cobra, and we got the AH-1F Sea Knight. So what's the Sea Knight? Cobra Night Imaging Thermal Equipment. Very expensive helicopter, 150 points. Not as expensive as an Apache, but it can hit just about as hard as an Apache. And I'm saying just about, because it has TOW 2 missiles, it does not have Hellfires. It does come with 10% ECM. The standard Cobra does not. Or rather, the standard Tow Cobra. You can only get a couple of these. I have seen them getting used to fairly great effect. And considering that these TOW 2 missiles are going to be somewhat expensive to replace, and you want to replace them often because they only carry 4, that's why I said get a field supply point. It is going to come in handy. The situation with this map, with this battle group, gives you a lot of activation points on Helo tab, so you're basically going to be using a lot of it. If the game gives you this many slots, it does it for a reason, because the units are generally quite good. Now with standard Cobra, the AH-1F, you can decide to upvet them, but then you only get 1 per card, or 1 per activation point, and I don't really want to do that. I want to have 2 of these. This way I can throw the standard AH-1F, which just carries a bunch of rocket pods, at a target that's, for example, entrenched in a house. If it's not just 1 unit of infantry, but a few, and supported by an armored vehicle, I can throw in the Tow Cobra. If it's something even bigger than that, I can throw in the Sea Knight. Now, considering you got this many helicopters, you could decide to bring a command helicopter, because they do buff the helicopters, and they can move pretty much as quick as them. These guys travel at 252. The Black Hawk travels actually a little faster at 270. So this is a case where you could, or the situation where you could make the case that the AH-60 is actually quite suitable for this particular playstyle, if you want to have these roaming groups of Helos. Finally, Air Tab. F-16 AT, F-16 Cluster Bomber, F-16 Seed, F-16 Fighting Falcon anti-air. You got a lot of F-16s. The F-16 AT comes with a couple of Mavericks, which is very similar to this guy. However, the F-16, very good agility, very fast. Does it come with ECM? Yep, 30%. Does it come with pretty decent accuracy? Yeah, it's 50%. It's the same as the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt has 52. Probably veterancy issue. These guys start at pretty decent veteran. Yeah, at veteran. You can push them to elite if you want to. I'm not sure why you would if you want to use these at all. In this situation, I of course want to have at least some fighting capability. So I'm going to bring 2 of these. You do get a lot of slots, and they're pretty cheap. only once you have picked 5 cards, you're going to pay 3 points per activation. So in this situation, you could decide that you just want like double Fighting Falcon at Veteran. Don't get them in Elite, you can't. They probably give you 0 units per card or something. Making sure these guys survive, I would bring a Seed Aircraft. I would bring 2. So just 1 card with 2 units. These guys, good range, really good accuracy on the harm. And make sure you escort them with a Fighting Falcon. Once you have enemy air suppressed, you might also be able to use these guys to clear a path for your helicopters. Or shoot down enemy fighters as they are threatening your fairly sizable helicopter group. Cluster Bomber, you decide. Do you want a Cluster Bomber or do you want an anti-tank plane? I tend to prefer anti-tank planes because I'm sniping high-value targets. Cluster Bombers are more easy to dodge. And I don't really like that. Now, if you want to try and bait out the enemy fighters, you could make the case for the Thunderbolt. The A10, that is. The A10 Rocket, HE, or the anti-tank variant. The Thunderbolt itself. These guys have armor. So yeah, they'll take a hit or 2. They'll spot out enemy anti-air. And potentially having these in tandem with a Seed could work very well. Having them just absorb fighter missiles and then having your own Fighting Falcons shoot down the enemy planes can work very well. It's really going to come down to what playstyle you want. As for the laser-guided bomb, I'm not sure why you would use these. I haven't really seen the point and purpose of the laser-guided bomb. It does a decent amount of damage, but I don't really know what the whole selling point on the laser-guided bomb is. If you do, let me know down below in the comments. So how would I build out the rest here? I would probably go all F-16s. For the simple reason that it is easier. If you just bring more F-16s, it means everything travels at the same speed. So if I am swimming in points, I can bring in a Fighting Falcon fighter, I can bring in a Seed Aircraft, and I can bring in an AT, and I can go to town on enemy anti-air defenses. I can make sure enemy fighters get taken out. These guys all carry the AIM-9M, by the way, so they all have some defenses. And I can start hunting down enemy tanks. It gives you options. What do I spend the last 4 points on? Well, that's basically up to you. Do you want to play more tank heavy? In that case, I would say bring yet another card of Abrams, or even put them in higher veterancy, but, well, like I said, they're going to be commanded by one of these tanks, so generally don't bother. You do get a ton of these cars, though. If you want to, you can have 20 of these guys, but keep in mind they are expensive. And I prefer to have a bit more versatility in my, let's say, in my toolkit in my battle group. Considering infantry is a little light at 19, I might need more. Recon, I think I have enough. I have 22 units, which is more than infantry. I have my command unit, I have my, like I said, the open field sniper, I have my Helo. You could decide to go with an additional helicopter to also start spotting for that helicopter group. You just don't need the Kiowa warrior. You can decide that you want to have maybe some Heimatschützen to throw into the enemy and just, well, again, have something that your tanks can shoot at when these guys spot it. You can decide that you want arrow rifles and make sure that once these helicopters punch a hole in something, like punch a hole in the enemy lines, you land arrow rifles fairly shortly after. You get a ton of options. So these last couple of points, I'm going to give to you for consideration. Oh, by the way, you cannot actually get the infantry. It's too expensive. Similarly, you cannot get a CV or a Logi unit. So you're basically constricted between going with air, going with recon, or with tanks, at least the way I have the deck built out. Considering that I have, in my mind, a decent amount of armor, I have my other armor over there, I would probably bring a recon in the form of a green archer or a scout. Let's go with the scout, this guy. And that's my battle group, 50 points. Now, I'll post this thing down below in the description if you want to use it for yourself. And I hope to record some gameplay soon, so I can actually show you how this battle group plays out. This is one of the 2 battle groups. Let me know what your thoughts are on this video. If you also want me to do an overview of the other battle group, so you know what's in there, what you can expect, and how they're going to play. If there's no interest, I won't have to do a video, so by all means, let me know. Thanks for watching, hope you found it useful, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield soon.